Thank you.
That's great. Yes. Yeah, because the cards are going to sit over there. Sit up there, maybe. Oh, yeah. And so that broke the ice, so now I'm finally out of denial. I was telling him about it. It's actually magnetic.
Oh, yeah.
What if I were as I actually am, belonging to the iron earth? I pulse, fluid torso of rain. I pour, electric spine of thunder. I tremble, weightless limbs of air. I levitate. What if I were exactly as I am? Y si yo fuera exactamente como soy, pertenezco a la tierra de hierro, yo vibro, dorso líquido de lluvia, me derramo, eléctrica columna vertebral de trueno, yo tiemblo, extremidades ligeras de aire, me elevo. Si yo fuera precisamente quien soy.
מה אם הייתי כמו שאני בעצם? אני שייכת לאדמת ברזל, אני זורמת. גוף נהר של גשם נוזלים, אני שופכת. עמוד שדרה חשמלי של רעם, אני רועדת. חוסר משקל, גפיים של אוויר, אני מרחפת. מה אם הייתי בדיוק כמו שאני?
ماذا لو كنت الأرض الواقعية جذورنا النحاسية المتسلسلة إلى نطفة أعماقنا إلى نواة أجذاعنا تنهمر علينا مبانينا الخيالية تسعقنا كهرباء خفية المدى تسللت إلى منتصف العمر دبدبات عديمة اللون والطعم صارخة لعناية ألوهية تمطر وتضحك في أفق واحد ماذا لو لم تكن دخانها قد مضى كأن ولو كان ولو برك تحت سحابة نارية الشظى
Để gặp ơi, Gudine, gặp ơi, hôm nay kia cái gì beni, thì mình vừa là bữa khắc hại, tình gani, ta sửa thà thế nên oai, mang cái tripi gì, anh rồi như chú thà rằng càng cái tình hoan si mang độ yêu, em lại anh đau hi cái gì em vừa gặp ơi cô tin nè cô mà khoa nè tô ok Ano kaya kung ako'y tunay na talagang ako? Nakabahagi ng lupang bakalin, pumipigtig ako. Tuloy-tuloy na katawan ng ulan, pumupuhos ako. Kuryenteng galugod ng kulog, ako'y nanginginig. Walang timbang, mga galamay ng hangin, lumulutang ako. Paano kung ako walang kulang? Talagang ako.
Nasa ang kami senya meti ankasa. Nasa siya yɛsɛ dadeɛ no metena bia. Mede me ho ahyɛ asase mu. Mebo te sɛ akoma. Nsuo a ɛfi nsuo mu. Metogo. Apra na abobɔ mu na nyini ntete gya yɛwie. M'ani wɔ so. Mframa a na ɔnyɛ den ɛbɔ wɔ n'aho. Mesensɛn wiem. Na sɛ anka meyɛ sɛ na mete ara.
もしも私がそうだったなら、実際そうであるように、鉄の大地に属する私は脈打つ。雨の流動体、私は注ぐ。雷のエレクトリックスパイン、私は震える。黄金なき鍛えの手足、私は浮き立つ。もし私がありのままの私であるように。
શું કદાચ હું હોત કઠોર લોખંડી પૃથ્વી સાથે બંધાયેલી ભીજાયેલું આ માથા વગરનું શરીર, કરોડરજ્જુની ઇલેક્ટ્રિક ગર્જના, હવાના વજનહીન અંગો, જો હું હોત તો.
Et si j'étais comme je suis réellement, appartenant à la terre ferreuse, mon cœur bat, le torse ruisselant de pluie, je suis une averse, une colonne vertébrale à la puissance du tonnerre. Je tremble, les membres légers comme de l'air, je plane. Et si j'étais exactement comme je suis? Nedemele abe alesi tout mejola mejojo zume nyejile popom chifonia mechia le sasram yo chijaja emenye nyejime pu ho nuse akonka chosom tombo mele vum abo plafo fo abe ayaene mele jojomi na de yame aleke mejo abe alesi tutu mele ne.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Baroque Literary Arts Center, I'd like to welcome you all to the Wanda Coleman Theater and to the LA book launch of Random Experiments in Bioluminescence by Amy Shimshon-Santo. Please give it up for Amy. My name is Jimmy Vega. I am the Associate Director of Beyond Baroque. I'd like to start by acknowledging Beyond Baroque's presence on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Tonga peoples. We acknowledge the wrong done to these peoples through settler colonialism, genocidal practices, and the violent disposition of their land. As an arts organization, we are committed to uplifting indigenous communities, their stories, and cultures. For those who don't know, Beyond Baroque is Los Angeles' oldest literary arts center, located here in Venice, California. Founded in 1968 by George Drury Smith, first as an experimental literary magazine, before reimagining itself and becoming the literary home we know it as today. We are based out of the original Venice City Hall and help support writers and help cultivate new writing through our extensive program of writing workshops, readings, and performances. We offer a number of workshops online via Zoom, such as our free weekly Monday night fiction workshop, currently facilitated by Raquel Baker, and our historic Wednesday night poetry workshop, currently facilitated by Tom Lachis. Similarly, we offer several paid in-person and online intensive workshops throughout the year. We just wrapped up our 30 and 30 workshop with poet Brendan Constantine, with more workshops slated to be announced for the rest of the year soon. And aside from our workshops, we offer several readings throughout the year. Notably, next week we'll celebrate the anthology of Somos Chicanas from Riot of Roses Publishing House, with readings by Brianna Munoz, Angelina Sainz, and Brenda Vaca, to name a few. And later that evening, we will host a reading in Spanish with authors Viggo Mortensen, Omar Pimienta, and Margarita Pintado Burgos. Our current gallery exhibition, starting in our lobby and culminating upstairs in our Mike Kelly Gallery, is titled 7, and it is an exhibition by 7 Los Angeles-based artists. These 7 women artists have been making work for many years, and while Los Angeles per se is not the theme or subject of their pieces, their surrounds play an important role in their creations. So please make sure to leave some room and check that out after our program this afternoon. And for more on all of this, please do visit our website at beyondbaroque.org or at BBLitArts on our socials. Finally, we offer several memberships to Beyond Baroque, starting at $60 for an individual membership. And purchasing a membership allows us to sustain our space, our programming, our workshops, and now more than ever, we need to keep arts, literary arts specifically, alive in Los Angeles. On May 17th, we will be hosting a spring wine tasting fundraiser, where we'll gather in the Poets Garden, taste some great wines from Sochi Wines and Baco, and pair them with wonderful poets such as Mimi Tempest, James Cushing, Mariano Zaro, to name a few. And supporting our fundraiser is a good way to uplift the arts and Beyond Baroque as we continuously face the loss of crucial arts funding, not only here in Venice, but throughout the nation. We were recently impacted yesterday. We got our NEA grant terminated. And we have historically received that grant in years past. So please do become a member if you're capable, and I hope you're ready to enjoy a fabulous event celebrating Amy and some other wonderful poets. So now, without further ado, I want to welcome our first poet of this afternoon. Akba Arinchuenko is a 2023 Oxbelly Writing Retreat Fellow, winner of the 2021 Poetry Archive Worldview Prize, a Best of the Net nominee, Pushcart and Jeffrey Dreamer Prize, shortlisted for the F.T. Bodley Head Prize, and a finalist for the 2020 Black Warrior Review Fiction Prize. His works appear in Kenya Review, Ada, Transition, Black Warrior Review, Prairie Schooner, The Rumpus, Poetry Review, and elsewhere. He is the curator of Makabala, a bilingual conversation series, co-host of Makabala's Poem a Day in Translation, and the Church of Poetry. Please give it up for Akba.
I feel very important. Thank you all for coming out today. Translation is an act of love, and I'm delighted to witness what Amy has done so far. We've listened to everyone read in Arabic, Ewe, Ga, French, Spanish, Hebrew, and so many other things. Of course, and what I'll be reading today, the Pidgin English, Nigerian Pidgin, of course. My name is Abba Arinzechukwu.
And I'm going to raise this because you're a tall man.
Thank you so much. You're such a beautiful man. My name is Abba Arinzechukwu. I'm a storyteller. And I'm going to tell you a story because we tell stories to make sense of our place in the world. During the full moon, under the shade of a tree, is a garden of people who are enthused by stories. Okay, so some of those trees and the birds in the background. As a child, it is something I look forward to whenever we travel outside of the city to my mom's village. Excitement is usually not because I love traveling outside of the city. It is because under that shade, the village storyteller embellishes stories we already know or recounts new ones as told to him by his ancestors. Anyị adịghị agbakọ maka n'ọnwa, anyị adịghị agbakọ mana onweghị onye adịghị afọ ọnwa na be ya, mana ọ bụ ihe kwesịrị ekwesị ka ụmụnna na-eme. We do not gather because the moon doesn't appear in everyone's sky, but because it is necessary for us to be in community with one another. Also, my ancestors, the Igbo say. This is the reason I'm excited to go out with the other kids during the cold nights of Harmattan in December. It is cold today, so it reminds me of Harmattan in Nigeria. The Igbo is one of the many nations in Nigeria and it's a language spoken by over 40 million people. I speak Igbo. I am Igbo. This, of course, has influenced my relationship and excitement with the world and the other 4 languages I'm familiar with because we are the languages we speak. An age-long tradition coursing through us. The Igbo are a communal people. It is little wonder their proverbs and philosophy highlight the importance of community. And one of those philosophies highlighting communal achievement is the phrase, Ibu Anyedanda. It means no task is difficult for a colony of ants. As long as the ants keep working together, they'll achieve their goal. We are here because we are a community of lovers, lovers of language, of course poetry. Igbo na-asụ n'olu n'olu mana akwa ụkwara ọ bụrụ otu. We speak in many tongues, yet when we cough, it makes the same sound. We are because of our collective strength. We language, therefore we are. Ndị be anyị, unu abịana. No, ndụ mmiri ndụ azụ. Welcome, comrades. May your lives be as the water. May you be as the fish in water frolicking with freedom. On that note, we'll be affirming our presence in this space through a call and response just like the Igbo would to bless our day and of course open this reading and book lunch. So for each phrase I say, you respond with Ise. Say Ise. Ise. Thank you. Can I hear everyone say it again? Ise. Great. Ihunibe mmamano. Ise. Ndi California mmamano. Ise. Ohaneze America mmamano. Ise. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Akba. One more time for Akba. That was wonderful. Up next, Karen Yaga's chapbook, All of Us Are Cleaved, was published by Nomadic Press, Black Lawrence Press, in 2023. Her first collection of poetry, Archipelago Dust, was published by Meritage Press in 2010. Karen has recently translated Dancing Hands, a story of friendship in Filipino Sign Language, which won a Schneider Family Book Award, and How Do You Eat Color, a recipient of the 2022 Rhino Founders Prize, Fillmore Tabio Senior Memorial Prize, and Elizabeth George Award, and a Hedgebrook residency. Her poems, translations, and prose have also appeared in various journals and anthologies. She has an MFA from Warren Wilson College and teaches Filipino Tagalog at UC Berkeley. Please welcome Karen Yagas.
Thank you. From tall to not so tall. Thank you for that generous introduction. Thank you, Beyond Baroque, for always nurturing writers and poets. It's so important to have physical spaces like this, especially at a time that increasingly calls for us to be together and to gather in person, in community and in poetry. I actually met Amy in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic online, also through poetry. And there's something about connecting through works that are important to us, that we nurture these friendships throughout these very pivotal moments in our collective experience. And I'm very happy to have made it to her book launch. I told Amy I finished her book and I notated her book this week for this launch, and it was such a delight to spend a lot more time with her poems. We actually also shared a writing workshop together, and so to see them in this form that you can hold in your hands is quite special. And Amy has given many of us space and allowance to write and express ourselves in our mother tongues, to also expand our consciousness and our appreciation for the poetry of landscape and non-human languages. And I want to specifically read a series of poems that speak to that, even as I write about family and what it is to be a Filipino American at this time and place. So I thought I'd do something different, which is collect some of my older poems that I haven't read a while, that is in conversation with a lot of Amy's work as well. And this one appeared in my first collection. It's called Descent. My mother's name means end in Tagalog, and my father's name means wound in Spanish. The prepositions I must supply, in, until, off, despite, or perhaps a clause, end. Asked to explain my melancholy, I offer my full name and continue to reside in English. To be a daughter is to have a duty to grammar, to enact the relationship between words that otherwise disappear into vision. Super, then lack off, and much later, D, is in division. In the family albums, everyone is always held by someone else in siesta or in fiesta. My mother's young legs looked miraculous, and the caption said so, legs. A man in bell-bottoms turned up in a portrait with a look that means defiance or father. Back turned on the house, his shadow formed the perfect eye on the ground. I'm going to read a few more from that work. Canvas. Everyone forgets God sometime. My father wakes up and on a canvas to remember paints his hand over and over. Asked to describe a black hole, a fifth grader said, "It's laughing." The answer was, nothing escapes it. Not time, not the light of stars. If the universe is so big, shouldn't everything lost be found somewhere else? I didn't know what to say that day. I was being rearranged like Picasso's chair. In stories, a heart can be stuffed with hay beats inside a scarecrow. When you're young, crocodiles can swallow clucks. A ticking sound always precedes pain. Keys, sadness, childhood, where do you put them away? Thank you. You don't have to, but thank you. America. In the middle of Omaha, chasing a man, I know that it's you. Many years now, many nights. Your beautiful blankness that is the sky when no one is looking at it. The lakes you've made of our mouths. America, I want your brand of ecstasy bursting in me like champagne. I want that power to exempt from suffering whomever I deem worthy, with only a few syllables, a name, a self so solid it gives off rays as if made of glass. I wrote that many years ago before we found ourselves in this particular time and space, but I came here as an adult. I'm a naturalized citizen, and I think as somebody who came here as an immigrant, it has a very different, it's a very different moment now, right? For many of us who are holding citizenships and homelands elsewhere, and you know, the image of me of this country as glass has always kind of stayed with me as something that reflects on itself, but is also quite breakable, you know, depending on how we relate to it. Moving now to a few newer poems. I read one. Now mostly about California and Los Angeles. Praise the Fire, with thanks to Joy Harjo. Praise the fire, the canyon it cleared, the dire, the dry, the coast below, the godwits and the snowy egrets, the silver glitter that dusted the rose bushes, the few seconds before our eyes discerned it as ash. I paused to praise all the ways I could not have been here today. There's the mysterious pill, one New Year's Eve years ago, getting into a stranger's car after being lost on a trail in Mount Tam, and one more time in rural France. There was the spinning rock on the drive back from Black Rock, the lies I told the police to keep an ex-lover's brother from being deported. Oh, the effigy, how big the flames, how seductive. Praise choosing the same regrets over, burning the same bridges, the town towards you, the cinders. And I would like to end with two poems from my book, from the chapbook. One is, and I hope Amy reads or talk about her self-portrait poems in her collection, but this opens, and our self-portrait always somehow manages to incorporate a lot of what we see in our urban, natural landscape that is not quite pure or pastoral, but is always impinged upon by human activity. Self-portrait as heap and wilt, as opposite to saint, less field of ranunculus and more nematodes in the spill of spring, the dirt the monk is scooping more than is calm. The want to be the garden and finding the slab of brick and faucet shards topped over by mulch. Not lavender, but snow in summer ground cover, the rust that has leaked on grass, neither metropolis nor old rural, I am each radical, all chemical, open pit mining, canaries that flew back. And this last poem, I'm especially thinking about as the many border crossings I've done in the past when I was going back and forth. But even now, working in a university, and many of my colleagues and my friends and students, you know, whose futures are uncertain because it's a choice between staying here or going back to their country and not knowing if they'd be able to come back to their studies or to their livelihoods or to their very important work. Are you bringing fruits, seeds, plants, animals, disease agents, snails, soil? O border agent, buffed and blushing, monsters are portable too. the one Hollywood imported, the one wild and winged and cleaved at the waist. She would travel her tendril tongue across your stonewall abs to reach the soft liver, her hunger a murder. What is the value of all the articles that will remain in the United States? I must have heard you say particles, which is only partly what we are, since we're also waves, reporting back to the moon. Forgive me, I must have been daydreaming of pounded rice sweetened with crab fat. I am looking at you and thinking fondly of red, necessary agent to other colors. It is 5:40 a.m., we are both hungry, and my advice is bread. Do you know a rosebud that refuses to bloom is called a bullet? How many flowers now spangle our streets, dear agent, because our country is a clenched fist. Step in front of the camera, try not to smile. Oh, but I have more to declare. Thank you so much.
So Jimmy, I forgot to read his poem.
Please.
He did a greeting. We don't want to miss his poems.
I'm sorry, I'm getting old. Yeah, because I started the introduction by talking about how translation is an act of love. I'm going to read some poems on love, even if they are not so lovely poems. Almost. At the end of July, the sun was my only witness. As my heart, weak as the last call of a bird after orgasm, tips over, pulling all that's left of my body into a violent, horizontal disposition in the corner of an abandoned alley. At the center of a mother of crows, holding court for their dearly departed. Honoring the stream of the Orpheus, along with the 12 ruling gods, Heracles made a feast for my resting place, a pillar of tulips, fuchsia on my lips, a bunkavile over my chest, the CPR of a stranger growing stronger in my heady stream. If I knew then God was after my life, and destruction awaited me, at the end of my carnal intimations, I would have surrendered to your California summer touch, neither seeking mercy nor gentility at your bubblegum temple. Allegory. Tonight, Abuja searches for a full moon in a long-forgotten dictionary of keepsakes. Orion, pivoting from an epicenter of wonder, plunges itself into Jabi Lake, seizing like fish on a grill. Its suddenness rear-ends a herd of horses, skipping on a gully field of elephant grass, their voices drowning in the horridness of a morbid wind. In the contours of this fastidiousness, the trees opening into the clouds are abandoned emissaries, attempting relevance. Yet, some cows have seen worse than this. In a buyer, everyone is a person of interest until the slaughterer drops the side. Until the mad goes, vegan or the drove turns into rare, offers Kronos a rock instead of beef. In repose now, the cattle still fears the agitations of silence. When in the theater of the morning bride, Zera says, heaven has no rage like love to hatred turned, nor hell a fury like a woman scorned. The night upon her vengeful loss steps onto the stage, embracing Zera, swallows the disturbance of the city. Because they are poems, of course, translated from some of the Ghanaian languages, I'm going to read you a poem written after Accra. Accra night, after Porvelin, after XSMFU. Night creeps in on us, a man in pajamas, remembering he's a husband only when lies are invoked. The trajectory of the crescent evades casual eyes. Ospreys fleeing the sky are hit with the muezzin's call for prayer. No, the firmament, rid of his constellations of miracle, stares solidly at the silhouette of the city. The trees so bare, reluctantly surrender to the air around them, casting glimpses to our coquetries. From the shadows, we respond to women calling out to their Spanish buccaneers. Thence our legs carry us to a bout of banterings before homing. Meanwhile, our breaking birds are stretched in the streets, know to what extent the feet can be brave before bowing to gravity. Meanwhile, alone, a wife watches the world from her window tonight. Perhaps, if the lights do not come on, you can bring your lover too. Perhaps, if we ask nicely, never mind. You are here now, Prometheus. The vultures can begin. And the last poem is called Magnus Effect. Outside of the bedroom dream is a certain sun in a field of daffodils. Outside of TV are remnants of my life. A flutter of confetti abandoned on the bedroom floor. Là-bas, everything bright and beautiful spins out of my imagination. Yet, try it in a rice field. A cockatoo calls hopelessly for a mate who does everything but pay attention to the music of honeyness. Such is the tempo of spring, the melody of wind moving through an arcade of greenery, and the rose move of an orchard, petrichor flavor domain. Oh, how to see the word for his dictionary, not my blues pedantry. Wondrous anemia of the golden age, I come before you, a figment of what was supposed to be. Let my thoughts settle on the silence of the muses. The wheel of fate moving as if I conductor, directing the voiceless orchestra into a deserved rest. My bed of Science sea is laid. My weighted blanket of thunder rests on my crunched body, an illusion of wholeness, glistening in the stillness of water. Even the turtle, swift with its saxophone movement, blows snow bubbles as it responds to the rhythm of home. For Ngozi, suddenness unravels the mighty, so is sleep and homing. Though I have no hand in what other songbirds traverse the horizon, I can translate their songs as much as a cockatoo's call. What I have learned, I must tell you. Silence is not the sound of your feet as you disappear into the bedchamber in your purple pajamas, smelling of lavender, curling up in a corner of the bed. It is not your favorite song on the radio at 10:15 post-meridian of a certain April. Your rouged lipstick lips are moving. It is not your back turned to me in the cold while the vanilla-scented candles burn brightly, plastering our silhouettes on the matted white wall. It is looking into the soil with my X-ray eyes, not being able to tell you apart from the worms nesting in obscurity. Such is the misery of a bird billowing into the abundance of a rice field, but greeted by a wilderness. Outside of me is everything I know about tenderness. The wind I caught for your last birthday puts me to sleep today. Thank you.
Let's give it up one more time for Aqua and Karen, please. I also wanted to give a big thank you to all of our staff for making today possible. Quentin Ring, Yvonne Salinas, Eric Alberg in the booth, Genesis Perez, Nick Foreman, Rhiannon Cielos Chavez. They keep the space running, so please, if you can give them a hand, please. And this space is dedicated to the possibilities of language, and we are seeing a lot of that today, especially in the opening video of many poets, writers, speaking and reading in different languages. And if you haven't noticed, we also have some little bit of some birds chirping, and I think some wetland sounds, and maybe Amy can speak a little bit about that. But before we introduce the final reader, we do want to remind you that after the final reading, we're going to set up, have a little bit of a conversation here, and then enjoy a beautiful reception. I mentioned the 7 exhibition upstairs in our Mike Kelly gallery, but we actually also have a closing reception for the Proxy Gallery, and if you missed it, it's right in back of me by the women's restroom. It's kind of contained in a box, so please do check that out, and we'll go and all hang out after the event. But finally, and certainly not least, Dr. Amy Shimshon-Santo. is a writer, educator, and cultural maker who believes that creativity is a powerful tool for personal and social transformation. She was born on Tovaangar land in current-day Los Angeles and has immediate family in Southwest, the Middle East, and South America. Amy is the author of Random Experiments in Bioluminescence, Catastrophic Molting, Even the Milky Way is Undocumented, the limited edition chapbook, Endless Bowls of Sky. Her essays have appeared in GeoHumanities, Urban Education, and Imagining America, and come together in her forthcoming collection, Piecework, Ethnographies of Place. She has been nominated for an Emmy Award, 2 Pushcart Prizes, a Rainbow Reads Award, Best of the Net, and was a finalist for the NightBoat Poetry Prize. She has performed and taught throughout the US, Latin America, West Africa, Taiwan, and Singapore. Recent community collaborations touch the University of Boulder, Colorado's access and community engagement efforts, UCSC's Department of Play, University of Maryland's creative placemaking, along with global initiatives with UNESCO in Mexico, UNED in Brazil, PaGya Literary Festival in Ghana, and the Lagos International Poetry Festival in Nigeria. She has edited anthologies and special editions published by UC Press, IOPN, Critica Cultural, Libretto Magazine, and most recently Songs of the Earth for the LA Public Library, and Reading Braille with Chocolate for the Braille Institute of America Library. She probably knows that I really kind of like the stuff that she does, and I really admire her for holding space, holding community for others, uplifting others, especially in such a crucial time. Please welcome Amy Shimshon-Santo.
I'm just gonna give you a hug. Congrats. Thank you. Thank you guys. Congrats. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being in my life. If you close your eyes for a moment, or even if you keep your eyes open and you step into the sound is a soundscape recorded here in the Bayona wetlands, and it's the last wetlands in Los Angeles. So you might hear birdsong, insects, you might hear cars, you might hear airplanes, and the wonderful Daniel Rothman has done this project where he's recording 24-hour cycles with a very high-quality microphone in the wetlands. And I met Daniel through Deka, who's a wonderful, she's my neighbor, and she's also a wonderful urban planner and ecologist. And a while ago, there was a recitation of poems and stories and ecological work and analysis about the wetlands, and then Daniel had put the birds in another space that we could all go into and kind of be in. And I just said, I really want to read poetry to that sound. And we made it happen. So I hope you're feeling the mental, physiological benefits of the sounds along with the poems. So I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank Akpa and Karen. I want to thank Jimmy. We've been talking about this a long time, and he's always had kind of an open heart. And also, reading here is also very important to me because I grew up in Dogtown, and I left at 16, and when I came back in my mid-20s, I didn't really recognize the place very much. There was like one falafel joint, Gilbert's, and then Beyond Broke. So it's really a big deal at a time like now that Beyond Broke is still here, and we're all going to support Beyond Broke just like Beyond Broke's been supporting us. So I'm glad you mentioned, I know this sounds silly, but when you buy books, it helps them. When you buy a membership, it also helps them. So please do that if you're able. I'm going to read a little bit of the conclusion to this book. I know, I go into poetry and I also go into prose, but it's a very strange book. And I do want to play, but I also want to be legible, right? So I'm going to share a little bit about the thinking behind it. This collection is evidence of poetry as wayfinding. The process completely shifted my perspective on what kind of a writer I wish to be in the world at a time like this. The pandemic sent me outside, online into the virtual arms of global friends. Close and far melted into one. Playing across languages and contexts opened my mind, and this journey guided me toward a new vision for habitat, language, and community. I've always longed to speak all of our family languages, even the ancestral ones. It's been difficult to try and read different symbols that move in different directions. Nothing is too difficult with exposure, but my schooling never included ancient languages. Even when I was studying in Mexico, we studied prehistory and history, as if prehistory wasn't still alive and growing and changing. Prehistoria como lo indígena, como si fuera ya un artefacto. Obviously, that's not true. And also, Abjad languages like Hebrew and Arabic are made of consonants. Vowels appear as markings or diacritical signs. Nikud are unnecessary for fluent speakers and are eventually removed from the text. So vowels are like training wheels on a bicycle. Additional markings called ta'amim tell the reader how to chant or sing a text, not a separate language or writing of music, but how you can make all of your language become music. I've heard that this is also true in other languages, including Yoruba. This is evidence of the importance of orality and song in our literary legacies. The need for poetic forms relevant to multiple cultures erupted in me after realizing that my family's heritages were absent from standard study. I got to the end of the book about poetic forms, and there was nothing in a Jewish tradition or in an African-descended tradition other than blues poetry. I felt bereft. I called my mother and said, "Have we no poetic forms?" "What are you talking about?" she said, aghast. "Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam." She began to pray over me. You see, we are made of poetry. Because ancient languages are rarely taught in schools, restoring mother tongue requires taking a literary stance. This shifts authority from formal education to households and communities. We consult our elders as the experts. We reach out to friends and families to make sure it's just right. Many people in the US mourn losing our mother tongues, but we didn't just forget them behind the couch. Tremendous violence has taken place for one to lose a language. Loss is the outcome of systemic dispossession. Thankfully, people all over the world are organizing to honor languages as inheritance and affirm plurilingualism. As a teacher and a writer, I've fretted over what to do about this. We can stop editing our languages out and stop feeling ashamed of what we've lost. I've learned that even one letter in an ancient language is a treasure. For example, in Hebrew, each letter has a specific gematria, or numerology, and a creation story. Every letter has a creation story. One letter is a world. A tree will bend itself in search of light, and so will a woman. She will lay down and crawl along the ground to find it. There is dirt beneath the fingernails of these poems. Writing has moved me to the oldest ground, the earth. So the book is structured loosely around habitat and scientific concepts, pseudoscientific and real scientific concepts, a section on pollination, proximity, on the ocean, which of course makes up 3/4 of our surface, undergrowth, which is my word for forests, and then gravitational fields that have to do with, you know, being here. So pollination, right? I thought I've as a social scientist, I've studied social relationships, and I felt that I was falling short in how to live and approach these times. So pollination, the idea of symbiosis, was a way of me thinking about how to be. And proximity, or the fact that if we want to change something and we're not close to it, we probably can't. And that means being near the things we might not even like. But without the proximity, as my friend Eddie Partida said, out of sight is really out of mind. And then gravitational fields, we take for granted these things. Every single one of us has a gravitational field. An object has a gravitational field. And of course, we are pulled to the center of the earth through a gravitational field. So that made me think about what are the things that are holding us up, keeping us going, that we don't even notice, that are doing their work almost invisibly all the time to help us live. And in the back of the book, there are a bunch of sound recordings from different friends, because even though it's a wacky book, I wanted it to be legible. And I'm going to read you some poems from the first section on pollination. I think I should also say that when I started working with different languages in the computer didn't like it. And it started making a lot of mistakes. And some of the mistakes I kept. And this was one of them. Obviously, Ixpe Eitrene, you can translate that one from Pig Latin, but the rest was a mistake. Ixpe Eitrene, I still listen to the 10 insects and shed birds there. Incunabula sonographica. Tree trunks grow in clusters, circling parking lots and dumpsters. I leave the container to take in all the action, listen with my natural body to the chi, 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 brita, titati symphony of wind and feathers. In the beginning, there was song. This poem is called Earthling Address. Barry Lopez once said, we can't actually know place without local languages in many places. And that contributed to this journey that I've been on. The epigraph is from Zitkala Sa, who lived from 1876 to 1938. I prefer to their dogma my excursions into the natural gardens where the voice of the Great Spirit is heard in the twitter of birds, the rippling of mighty waters, and the sweet breathing of flowers. If this is paganism, then, at present at least, I am a pagan. Deer, butterflies, buzzy pollen flowers, hummingbirds, sawbread worms, pollen sphinx moths, nectar tubes, pygmy nuthatch. Hello? Beloved magma deep in the earth's core. Honorable granite, quartz, and dilate. Esteemed silica and volcanic rock. Thank you for the ground we stand on. I will become more deep mixing pollinator, more lodgepole, more conifer forest than superstitious cataract of capitalism. Wonderful wasps, aphids, and weird-shaped flowers. Hear me. This geographical snapshot is a legacy of fire and culture suppression. Help me inhabit longer time frames, honor centuries of weather-wise societies, molding life and style with the seasons and multidimensional microclimates. Esteemed stormwater and winter, help me phenologically so dawn can be a chorus of birds in June before the leaf-out spring, peopleless Octobers and stark Februaries buried in snow motion. So aviary passage migrants can stay safe in numbers, singing community protection songs. Dear edge of lake, freshwater marsh, bulrush, alkaline flat, loan me language so I can return it to you. Let me learn the words for non-destroy ability. Incubate them on my tongue. Praise the endless landed languages of here. This poem is a single line poem, and I literally, in the book, you'll see single line poems, couplets, tercets, quatrains, sonnets. Well, actually, there's no sonnets that made it in, but I wrote sonnets and structured poems like villanelles and pantoons. This is a single line poem put together, inspired by Gerald Stern, and this photograph is from Temescal Canyon, and it was taken by my daughter, Riva Santa. I've been waiting to read this with the sound. I like the way the light and shadow mosaic the ground. I like hearing birds cussing, even if I can't see who said what. I like the straggly tangerine blossoms. I sit between dream life and Saturday. I walk my pencil through notebook leaves. I let light, sound, and words swarm the page. This poem comes in different languages. It's kind of a Neapolitan. I think I'll read it in Portuguese today. Arte e labor. Artistas sempre têm trabalho, mas nem sempre têm emprego, comida, ou lugar para ficar. Nem sempre tem recursos, mas sempre tem material. Nem sempre tem dinheiro, mas trabalham incessantemente. Sempre temos algo para fazer. Investigar, aprender, saber, dizer, sempre traduzindo vidas em novas formas, acordando e sonhando sozinhos e em comunhão. Artistas agarram oportunidades para viver, deixam posições para realizar o trabalho real de fazer cultura, histórias, futuros e um presente que vale a pena participar. Trabalhamos dias e noites, mão de obra para o qual não se candidata e que nunca te deixa. Trabalho que transforma e conecta vidas. Criação é um esforço necessário. Sente-se na terra, ao pé da humanidade, dizendo: conte-me, conte-me, eu estou ouvindo. So these next poems are in the section called Proximity, and some of them get kind of goofy. They're more visual poems. This poem is called Shabbat Cryptogram, and it's my way of saying the city belongs to everyone. The last lines, you know, this woman appears with scissors and a thimble, and she's measuring the city. Which way is it going? Where are you headed, I asked. To measure the soul of the city, she says, to know how tall and how wide it will be. The sun hides behind a white bolt of clouds. Wind shakes the trees, rippling our heavy skirts. The seamstress rushes past, silver needle glimmering in her hand. Run after her, says the wind. Tell her the city shall have no walls. It will be home to all living things. And these are visual poems that I won't read, but they get a little goofy. And it says here, with an epigraph from M.S. Merwin, I find a single prayer, and it is not for men. And I don't actually think he said that in a gendered way. I think in his mind, women were just men too. I think he was talking about people, which is a whole other level of it, right? This poem is called Mother. I'll say it because he said we weren't people yet, I guess. I don't know, I'd have to have a conversation with him about it. And that's impossible. Mother Artist sculpts the next generation. And actually, I've been reading this as Mother Earth sculpts the next generation, embedding seeds in the walls of her own body. Reborn melon of life, broken apart, and somehow made whole again. Her verse is written across humanities pages. She has published in every single one of us, the originator of text and our first sounds of life. And now I will go to residence. Residence. I reside with the dried leaves clustered on earth. Yo convivo junto con las hojas secas verde oliva unidas en la tierra. Beneath the grove of pines, our names known only to loved ones, not the forgetting machine. Debajo de una almeda de pinos, nuestros nombres son reconocidos solamente por los seres queridos, no la máquina del olvido que gira cada alma, dando vueltas, apuntándola lejos de sus raíces. Our names known only to loved ones, not the forgetting machine that spins each soul around, pointing it away from its roots. And this is a translation that Teo did that I'll click for you.
What?
With any luck, it will play.
Con calma senha, con mammo, mo, ni wa. La ne con mo li set maku. Esi na. Hi ze I na liqui. On fangi ega emi imzi. Mohi. Monam zi ze. Tin vi koti lisenze.
We spoke once on a panel. We've been friends for what we've been doing translations for quite a while now, but we spoke once on a panel and he said, all I really need is my language. All I really need is my language. And his strategy for doing that actually was to play basketball in Chinanteco. And Chinanteco is the name of the land where he is from. And the language, of course, Chinanteco. This poem came after a dream. It's called Murmuration. And I think when I put these into proximity, because they're bringing different languages into closer proximity. Murmuration. In the joy of a dream, I levitate in the tree canopy. But when I awake, gravity is my anchor. All the human dwellings are on the ground, sheltering land-bound bodies. Blackbirds dance above the rooftops, crackling sounds in the fresh morning. I run to the window. So does the child across the street, exploding from his door onto the sidewalk. Our arms open in chorus, wide as wings, while we witness the splendor of blackbirds flocking. Shimshon, the birds want to be watched and heard. Our bodies listen, planted in the ground like oaks. And Ogundare Abosede translated this poem into Yoruba for us, and the audio recording is not quite what we have to hang out with Abosede so you can hear it in her own voice. But these are the beautiful words and the diacritics that I mentioned with all of the sounds of things. I can try to play it, but I just think the quality's not quite good, so But you can read Awosede also. She's the author of a poetry chapbook called Enjambment. Do you want to come read this? No. So this poem is called Thousand Bird Tree. And I'm just going to let you see it. I'm not going to read it. I like the way poems look. I hope you do too. It's the English, Californian English on the left side. And Akpa masterfully translated this into Nigerian Pidgin on the right side. And maybe in the Q&A we'll read it together. But, you know, it's a persona poem that's told from the perspective of a bird. So, yes. I feel like I don't know. Should I read it? Should I not read it? I will just stop singing. Let me stop singing, and I'm going to tell you about this brown twig. We are migrants from the thousand-bird tree that was massacred last year when the humans cut down our world. They've killed most of the trees around here. Our singing trees are gone, and singing is what we like to do. What you call singing, we call living. Human homes aren't even alive, and they cannibalize space. Now there aren't enough homes for all the humans, and the rest of us are squatters. When they massacred the thousand-bird tree, we migrated south in search of good branches, limbs, and leaves, good bushes and flowers. We are many. We hop and scrape our feet in the dirt. I'm lucky to be able to rest here in the peach tree. There are seeds and dried leaves and grass for making nests. There are more sparrows than people. A woman lives here too. She has no wings, not one single feather. When the sun returns, she comes outside to be with us and sits in a chair. I watch her from a branch and click. She doesn't shoo us away or cut down the vines and trees. People make such strange sounds. Who knows what they're trying to sing? We, on the other wing, make music. Rhythmic clicking tapestries, feathers fluttering open and shut like fans. Humans might call it Morse code, but we're not warring birds. This is how we make the world beautiful. If I sang to you, you wouldn't know how to read it. Every day we sing our culture, jokes, and games. Every day you think, chirping. These next poems are from the aquatic section of the ocean. Feather Psalm 56. I find a hollow feather long as an open book. Encuentro una pluma hueca largo como un libro abierto. Wind animates the artifact of flight, lifting it from the sand into the sky. El viento anima el artefacto del volar, levantándolo de la arena hacia el cielo. We move together along the shore, sharing one shadow. Andamos juntos por la orilla del mar, compartiendo una sola sombra. Long curved quill emerging from the tip of a human hand. Una pluma larga y curvada, emergiendo de la punta de una mano humana. And this translation's been mastered by my masterful son, so I am going to play this. It's a translation by a mother and daughter. And when I asked Kadlejo if she could translate it with her mom, she said, I'm going to need my mom. And then she said, but we're in different cities. And this was the solution they came up with. I'll try it again.
Mashume amatano le botshelela.
Ke fumana ka siba le sekoti.
Le jole ka buka e ahlamile. Moya o pheula sefofise na sefofise o se nyolla le hlabatheng o se kopanya le lehodimo. re tsamaya mmogo le bopong nna le Sibalena re arolelana moriti motse o ko beileng wa hlaha o tswa ntlheng ya ngwana wa motho.
So this poem, I rarely read. A lot of these poems, I don't usually read. Usually when we go around, if you don't have a special event, you read 5-10 minutes and that's it. And so it's so nice to be able to just dive deeper into the book. And this poem I'm going to read because my daughter's in the house, and I love her so much. And this poem, there was this enormous windstorm on the beach. It felt like the sand was going to absolutely dissolve the whole planet into particulate matter. Nothing, you couldn't walk, you know, you thought, I'm gonna actually have to figure out how to fly now. And when I was completely disoriented, I turned around and I saw my daughter just really holding her own, really in her peace. And I'm so proud of you, Riva. I'm so proud of her that I thought I would read this poem today. Sunset in Oya's Sandstorm, for Riva. A flock of gulls levitate, sky surfing the same pitch of wind. Invisible architect of everywhere air lifts cloth and hair in all directions. Particulates attack. Sand waves bury shells, burrow into beaks, ears, and eyes. Terns plant their feet in wet earth, twist their heads away from the crackling surf. Human children launch scoops of sand in a raucous dialogue with the sea. My daughter sits in meditation beside the lifeguard station, eyes shut, conducting the opus of orange juice concentrate as it melts into the horizon. So I feel like I need to be aware of time. We only got a few more minutes, right? Are we okay? This poem is fun to read, and I'm just going to toggle back and forth. Yemoja is one of the aspects of divinity in the Ifa tradition of the ocean. There's also Olokun, which is the deep waters, and this is a structured villanelle poem that a European person made up, and I don't know who made that up. Do you know who made up the villanelle? I don't know who made up the villanelle. So it's just this agglomeration. Villanelle for Yemoja. Villanelle para Yemoja. Ocean holds all languages in her expansive reach. Dark silver nights or crab shell mornings, she connects every continent. El mar abraza todos los idiomas en su alcance. Noches plateadas y oscuras o mañanas de concha cangrejo. Ella conecta todos los continentes. I arrive on foot, the gull with wings, communing at the source of every syllable. Ocean holds all the languages in her expansive reach. Movimiento esmeralda remolinado. Las aves marinas flotan o se deslizan sobre patas de popote. Ella conecta todos los continentes. Pelicans glide along her flat surface. Sea lions lift their heads, gulp air. Ocean holds all the languages in her expansive reach. Las ondas rizadas se convierten en espuma. Mi cuerpo, forma humana de envejecimiento lento, mientras la cambia formas acuática, conecta todos los continentes. Water knows water, agua conoce agua, H2O and salt to salt, tidal roll, crash rumble, maremotos rolan, tumba, requetumba, elonga. Ocean holds all the languages in her expansive reach. Ella conecta todos los continentes. Que sí, ¿no? This next section is on the forest. And there is a little sound in here if it works. Let's see. No. Oh, here we go. All right, I'm going. Hemiptera. Blue Ridge forests are home to 158 tree species, the largest variety in all of North America. I was born into a concrete city with engineered rows of curated botanicals. We raise our young underground, sap-sucking commodities, oblivious to the box. The sound of the forest is new to me. Novel is the night without an ambulance, siren, helicopter, or highway patrol. Novel is the night without electrification. When I first heard the moon glow above the Blue Ridge Mountains, the sky was plump with darkness. Deafening chorus of 1.4 billion cicadas calling for their mates. I zombie walked to the edge of the grove to record the insect orchestra on my cell phone. What's wrong with her? A child says to her mom. She's never heard the night before. Some of the other poems are kind of sound. This is the rain. When the rain first started tapping right outside the window, you could see it. It was like rainforest, tim tap trap, dots trap, tip tap trap, pads, leaf pads, opal spot drops, splatter, sound spot drops. Rain plays the tree timbales. And the last section is gravitational fields. This one is a funny poem I never read, but this is a space where Louis Vetresto's on the board, and she always asks me about this poem, so I'm going to read it. Basically, what was happening is I was hiking the Santa Monica Mountains listening to physicists. No joke, like listening to Einstein talk about theories of relativity and so forth. And I'm like, these guys are wild. What is this language that they're using? What is X time? I mean, I thought there's just time. Like no time? Their language is wild. So this poem is really, after hearing Neil deGrasse Tyson say, 96% of all that is the universe is not anything we can remotely understand. That's why he's like, you guys think if we're going to be visited by some extraterrestrials, they're going to look like us? We ain't nothing. Like, it's going to look in a way you can't even imagine, right? Open your minds. Name is as good a term as anything for an unthinkable concept. 12, 10, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Accelerated parabola and hyperparabola of 2 hot times swim through the equilibrium particle soup located between 90 degrees and 270 degrees. This is the thing called a broken symmetry. Particles are created in pairs. Light is what happens when matter and antimatter don't annihilate. Lunch theory of string spaghettification. Large becomes small in a zero-energy universe. Quantum foam and the fabric of space-time, unthinkable accommodation to our ignorance. Generate a term for life by propelling yourself skyward at 7.6 miles per hour. One mistake can trigger an entire universe from nothing. So this poem is just about how I was trying to restore, I guess, my universe of language without knowing how to read the letters. And I won't read this, but you can see it's basically a poem that's written in Roman letters in English. When I was talking to our friend Yona Sanperi, he's a Black Jewish rabbi, friend of the family, and it was such a great thing to meet him and be able to have really relaxed conversations about so many different things. So I just took all of the vowels out of the poem, and I'm like, see, have sympathy with me. This shit is hard. Whamness It's hard to try to do this work. Actually, a friend of mine, Sabata Mokai, said, it's not easy to restore mother tongue. This poem is the same poem that you heard when you were coming in, and you all sat so quietly for that. I won't read it again. But it exists in many different languages. My mother is sitting in the front, did the translation in the Hebrew. And my friend Hasha Lamki, who lives in Abu Dhabi, did the Arabic translation. I actually was trying, I've been trying, sometimes I do read them in Hebrew and Arabic too, and my still evolving Hebrew and almost zero Arabic, because I wanted to hold those two languages together in my mouth and in my body with love. I wanted to speak a poem in both languages with love. And I showed it to a friend of mine who's actually Palestinian, the Arabic version. He said, no, Amy, that's really high-level Arabic. You can't start with that. You can't do it. And I actually was still like, ماذا لو كنت الأرض الواقعية جذورنا حسية تسلسل. And my mother's, ما إم حياتي כמו שאני בעצם, אני שייכת לאדמת ברזל, אני זורמת. This is the last poem for today, and it's a poem that you just can't, what can I say? There's no poems after this poem. Why? For me. It turns out this poem was inspired by a poem called the Akdamut. It says, after the Akdamut. And this was me looking for some kind of form in my own historical heritage. The Talmud says, all the seas being ink and all the reeds are pens. And this is a piyut. It was a piyut. This is not a piyut. The real Akdamut is a piyut, a liturgical poem that we read at Shavuot. And it's the best known and most beloved piyut. And it was written by Rabbi Meir Bar Yitzhak, who died in 1095. It was written in Jewish Babylonian Aramaic by a guy who was living in a place called Worms. The entire poem is 90 verses long, and each line ends with the first and last letter of the alphabet on the left-hand side. Wow. So I just was like, okay, let me play with the location of Worms, right? So you'll see Taf Aleph. Aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Taf is the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And if you think about a 90-page poem that ends with A-Z, 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 it reminds you that like this languaging thing is really about a lot more than just, it's about a lot more than I even know how to explain. It's a lot about how to live and what we come from and where we're going. So I'll just read you this poem. When I first showed it to a friend, the visual came out first, and I showed it to some friends in a poetry group, and they're like, how do you read it? And I'm like, that's true. How do I read it? And this is what happened. Ta, 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 ta. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Het, Tet, Yud, Ta, 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 Kaf, Haf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samech, Ein, Pe, Fe, Tzadik, Ta, 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 Samech, Samech, Kuf, Re, Shin, Tav, 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 Ta, 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 praise unceasingly, Ta, 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 almost an intelligible oneness, Ta, 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 all ages walking, crawling, sometimes running, sleeping on the wings of all kinds, Ta, 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 sliding with the angels of eggplant, Ta, 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 hummus and shakshuka, Ta, 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 the angels of rest, Ta, 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 calendar year of praise, Ta, rising up and down in all directions, Ta, 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 praise for good deeds, Ta, Ta, be strong and courageous, Ta, 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 prayers for praise itself, Ta, 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 bird-sung praises, Ta, Ta, piyut of praise, Ta, Ta, and even in the location of Worms, a woman could raise herself in sound and form, singing with the alphabet until there was only quiet. now I'm going to call up Akpa and Karen, and we're going to have open time for Q&A. And I just want to thank you for being with me. It takes many, many years to make a book, and it's very rare that you actually get a chance to share your creative process with people. So having you here today, and actually for most of you in my life, period, makes all of this so much more meaningful. I love you so much. Thank you for the chance to share. All right, so you can all think of your own questions now if you'd like. Or not even questions. What are the weirdest parts? What were the parts that you didn't understand or you felt something? All right. Wait, so he's going to open up the lights and he's going to turn on the microphones and we'll have questions and then...
Maybe we do one question each, so we should have also from the audience.
Yes.
Amy, I think my question to you, I'll start with I don't know if you mentioned the poem, the Villanelle.
Yeah.
The Villanelle poem, and I asked Amy, and I think we've been having this conversation, how do you negotiate the tension between wanting the expansiveness of, including a lot of other languages in your work, even including landscapes and soundscapes, and actually the concerns for legibility, right? And I thought playing with forms, because they present some kind of limitations, is very interesting in how you do that. But I just want to hear a little bit about how you think about that, and if that's a concern that you think now that you are in front of an audience, or does that come early in your process?
I think that, it's terrifying to be a poet. That's the honest truth. You could write your poems by yourself. You could share them with your friends, but if you're going to share them with other people, I don't know if of all the other poets in the room, if you feel the same. It's one thing to write a poem, it's another thing to share it out loud, because inherently we're doing something you're just not supposed to do, in a way. And if you don't, then the poems are usually quite boring and lifeless. So in terms of legibility, I would say my life is trying to be as inclusive as possible. I'm pretty much, I think about radical inclusivity in my life, and I do so to make sense of my own particular family and community. It's the most natural to me. It's not put on. It's the only way. But in terms of legibility, when you think about it, like it says at the bottom of this poem for I started putting it, okay, how do I say this? When we were designing the book, and when we were designing the book, we had to figure out how do you cite friends who did translations. And so you would normally put translation by so-and-so, right? And I thought, this is strange, but what if I'm not translating? What if I'm writing in more than one language too? And which one is the, I could say English is my strongest language for sure, so anything could be from that. But I started to think that all poetry is a translation. It's a translation, like it says here on page 56, of salt water. I'm trying to tell you about this ocean. I'm trying to tell you about this tree. I'm trying to tell you about this thing that happened, and it's a translation of sorts. Yeah. So in this whole book is, for those of you who know me, you know I'm very committed, I'm very serious about trying to live and trying to create conditions for life on Earth. But, sometimes play is what we need to shake things up. Mm-hmm. And maybe a new feeling, a new possibility will also come from serious play. So that's why the poems say translated from salt water and stuff like that. In addition to, like Gloria saying, she translated my poem from Spanish into enough.
I think serious play is the right phrase.
Yeah.
Speaking about inclusion, I'm sorry, I have
It's
a
okay.
bad voice.
You have a beautiful voice.
Can everyone hear me?
More or less.
I think it's not my problem, it's the microphone.
Close. Close. Oh, right a bit.
It's the microphone. Okay.
Yes.
Speaking about inclusion, I am particularly interested in how you build community or sustenance, how you sustain a community. I'm a very shy person, so having a big network of people, a large number of people in a particular space, or me trying to reach out to them all the time would drain me. And considering everything that went into getting this book together and getting all of these people reading their poems or translating your poems and reading them and all of those things, I can imagine the amount of work that went into that. How did you navigate this particular?
Well, first of all, I just have to push back a little bit about your shyness because I've seen you in different contexts.
Oh my God.
And Akpa is a literary leader in West Africa, without a doubt. I mean, that's how I met you. So you could be a quiet leader or a soft-spoken leader. But in terms of the book, basically the book was ready without everybody's translations, but we already had them because we'd been playing together. So I thought, should I not put them in if we have them? And so I didn't start out wanting to do that. It's just that it took a long time to make the book. It's been kind of unrolling since like 2021. And because of the pandemic, when you couldn't see anyone, and also I left a job in a university at that time because I actually didn't feel like I could ethically stay there. I didn't feel like we were of the same mind. And the friends that I ended up meeting, like Mame Wolo, for example, has changed my life. So I'm really blessed to have this kind of literary community, but it's all accidental in a way. Or maybe you'd say, Bashir, it's beyond me. Maybe it's the gravitational force of the universe. Yeah. But it certainly wasn't on purpose.
Thank you.
But now, how would you want to go back? It's almost like once you're there, you can't go back. And if there's only one language being spoken, or there's only one kind of group who thinks that the whole world is all about just their reality, I feel like, why would you ever want to do that? And I feel like maybe that's part of the problem with now. We all know nationalism is a good concept for certain things, like healthcare and public education and roads and housing, but it's not a modus operandi for identity per se, or it becomes an excuse for harming people when some people are a part of your group and some people are not a part of your group. And I think, maybe the cool thing about poetry is that it teaches us to listen and notice. And that kind of, I think it was your friend at the library event who said, it takes humility. We could use more humility in our activism and in our creation to be able to have that kind of proximity. Proximity is hard. Or it becomes more natural after time, maybe.
I think activism can also learn from poetry in lyricism. That if we are not out to always to try to convince people on our side and have a lot of the learnings around craft and the beauty of poetry, then that's another way of learning from each other. Yeah.
I mean, we get afraid when things are shut down because of words. And I'm like, this is our time for our words, everybody. We can make up new ones. We have some old ones. But it is an important historical time to come in here and do this reading and know that Beyond Baroque had their NEA grant, cut yesterday. I mean, in a way, I guess we would probably all have friends in different places where that's happened this year. It's still wrong. It's still, direly wrong. And if it means, okay, we're going to be, like you were saying in the beginning, we're going to be under the tree now doing our poetry. We're going to be there, but we're not going to give up on each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
From the audience?
Sure. If anyone in the audience has a thought or a perception or a question, feel free. Okay.
Senior. All the poems that you read are in this book.
Okay. Yep.
Glad I bought it.
More. There's more than that. Yeah.
Yeah, I just all three of you, the energy of your poems, very unique. That's so much in common that you're inspiring me. I wrote a lot of poetry as in my 20s and teens, and I haven't for a long time. So I'm looking for a poetry workshop, and this really instills a lot of inspiration about what it is, and being okay with not being able to explain everything, with just being able to hear and feel and let the words go around. And I love the translations, because even though if I don't understand the other languages, there's still an energy to them and an energy to the spoken language, which was really appreciated very much. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Kata, you were busy with a lot of stuff. Well, Kata's been helping. We all have to thank Kata for healthcare in California. So yeah, maybe it's a time for you. I think that's also a life cycle thing. You know, like as we get older, or as we change, there's different things that are asked of us. We come up to the plate in new ways. We give space in new ways, and but to stay always alive, right? To stay always learning. And we're lucky. I mean, the arts are some of the ways of doing that.
See? When you experience the reflection of your poetry in many languages, does it resonate in any part of your body in a certain way? And if so, what has been the most surprising experience of resonance in any part of your body?
I mean, my friend Jilly is the one that says that Tagalog is her heart language. I'm not a biologist, so I really don't know how to narrow it down to a very particular, but you know, there is a poem with digestion in it. I have always wanted to feel like I could be I could be who I am, and that was okay. And not just that it was enough, but that I was an important part of the web of the world. And I honestly never felt that here growing up. I felt so misunderstood throughout my life, partly because, probably because people who are kind of brought into the whiteness thing, like Jewishness was brought into the whiteness category, and then all of a sudden I was like, I'm not comfortable with this, because like the people who Holocausted my ancestors, I'm in the same group of them. I don't think we actually have the exact same history. Not that that matters, but there was always a bit of resonance, and the languaging in general brought me back to that, and I would have never gotten there through English or through the United States. It took my friends in different places who were translating my poetry to make me think, okay, what's the elephant in the room? Where is my heritage in this mix? And then even after that, you might think, okay, go off and just be with your people of that one lineage, but that's not what happened. It just became this bigger weaving of humanity and place, and that's the kind of world I want to live in. And to me, it's like I don't think soft is not the right word, but it is a counter opportunity to the hyper xenophobia that we're seeing right now, that is so dehumanizing and just so harming and so ugly. So in terms of, in my heart, I'll say the first time my poetry was translated, it was actually by Gloria Carrera, who is a Mazateca writer in Mexico, and Teo Chagat, who's a Chinanteco writer in Mexico. And we did this event for UAM, Universidad Autónoma de Metropolitana. It was a Mexican university. And I was so high. I was like, I had no idea. I hadn't had no joy in my life. People think you gotta go get a bag, you gotta go get some makeup, nah. I was like, give me this languages. And I went to the beach and I watched the sunset because I was so ecstatically happy. I didn't know what to do with myself. And I just said, please, more of this. More of this, more of this. And I don't think it's been particularly legible per se, but now a few years in, we did an event with also Leonora Simonovis and Lydia Liu at the public library. And we all walked away going, this is a little world, this is a world. It, like, here's everyone, you know, and it wasn't just us on reading poems, it was the audience being able to relax into ourselves together. Yes, Rwanda.
I have a comment and a question.
Yeah.
The comment kind of came up also at the LAPL at the when we got to hear all these different languages spoken. And I think there's something really beautiful about decentralizing English, even though I think we kind of idealize this idea of being able to understand one another. And so it's become this kind of like seen as a universal connector in the sense that so many people speak it. But hearing these other languages and being able to feel them, and only to what you're speaking of, like seeing where they land in your body, it's a completely different type of understanding that I think we've forgotten that is also important. And also, it's just beautiful, so thank you for doing that.
Right.
And then my question, knowing how long you've been working on this and how much work has gone into it, and what are you curious about now? What are you feeling inspired by now? Now that you can kind of move forward, that this is foreign and exists in the world.
Mm-hmm. I hope you all heard that. I hope everyone hears my daughter.
Yeah.
Right? She's a woman who should be heard. It's a really good question. It's interesting, when you make a work of art, there's all this work that goes into it that has nothing to do with creation. It has to do with refining it, it has to do with sequencing, and then it has to do with kind of packaging it into some kind of an object, and then finding the team you need, whether it's a publisher, producer, whatever, and then circulating it and promoting it, and oh my gosh, it's so much work. That right now, I'm just glad to be able to give, the book wanted, I feel like saying, the book wanted a chance to really relax and spread out a little bit, because when you go to you go to readings, most readings, it's a very small clip, and it's kind of a whole big world, the book. So having this today, I don't know if this is a launch or if this is almost like closure after years of work, but it feels really good. And I have felt that, well, there's one thing, there's things that are coming up. Like, for example, I'm co-editing, I'm chief editor on a book for the Braille Institute now of youth writing, because the Braille Institute of America we've been facilitating a national program of blind writers who are in high school. Blind and visually impaired, but primarily mostly completely blind. And we're editing that into a book. And then their state budget was also cut. So now they have no money for programming for blind and visually impaired people. And then I have a book of the essays that comes out later this year, Piecework, which is basically putting together a lot of essays I wrote when my daughter was very small, and then when she was growing, and then closer to now, and just saying, we can all say, misogyny has done this, or colonization or racism has done this, but what are we doing to care for ourselves and our memories and our families? I feel let me show up in that way, and that has to include me too. Not even if I don't think that my voice is particularly whatever. I'm one of everybody, so I should do my part as well, and push back against this idea there's only a few people who deserve to be heard. I can't say that and then not practice it. I have to challenge myself to get over whatever feelings I might have about self-concept, about confidence, and just do the actual work of carrying on. So in my head, I've been so pretty much in a very active, pretty prolific-ish kind of a place, that now I have to care for this book, which is, I feel okay, and then care for the next book. And then I think what will happen, if I know myself, is that the open space will dictate.
Mm-hmm.
And until then, I'm supposed to be caring for my community, caring for my family, myself, and also yeah, in a way that's more, I worked for years thinking, you know, if I just take care of everyone else, everything will be closer to okay. And then I realized the big joke of it all is that mostly, and I kind of learned this from you, Reva, if you don't tell yourself, if you don't say it to yourself, we're not modeling what we want to have happen. So we actually have to do the things for everyone, but also do the things for ourselves with the same kind of loving kindness.
Okay.
Yes, Papi.
So I confess that most of my adult life, I've never been much of a poetry reader, appreciator, and it occurred to me in this event that I think part of that is because poetry was a language that I didn't understand, you know, and maybe it was just the poems that I was exposed to or whatever, but this whole thing of its own language and listening to poems and languages that I don't literally understand, but can feel on some level, the energy, and I am grateful to you for opening my heart and mind up to poetry in a way, because really I've started reading your poems, you know, a few years ago, and was like, wow, this kind of makes more sense. I can relate to this. So yeah, the whole thing of language and the motivation and just what you're saying, I love it, and I love you, and thank you for doing it. Yeah.
Do you want to say something about Proverbs?
It's your day. So the spotlight should be on you.
Oh, there's no spotlight. It's just one sun and all of the light on earth.
I mean,
in terms of like how she said, I wasn't reading poetry because I didn't know what that was. But then I think we've had conversations about Proverbs where you're like, everybody's learning through poetry.
Yeah.
Maybe a word about that might be nice for friends.
I mean, it's not different from what I said earlier when I was making the introduction and I was talking about Ibuanyedanga. There's nothing difficult for a colony of ants.
That's a proverb.
Yeah, I was at an event yesterday about HIV and AIDS and LGBTQ, how the epidemic, and a particular woman in the audience said something about community building and saying something, always look out for the most vulnerable in your community and find ways to support them. So in this instance, how this is applicable in this instance is who amongst us does not relate to poetry or cannot understand what is being said through poetry, or who amongst us cannot be reached through language. And what you've just done, this multimodal approach to poetry, you have it on screen and some other instances. It's also funny because like when he asked you about like how do you feel this coursing through your body and all of that, Amy is a dancer. I mean, yeah. I mean, she always has this coursing through her body, and she's always in this moment. And if you all walked in a couple of minutes before this started, like there was this short clip of Amy, right? The silhouette of Amy dancing in this particular space, and you know, doing her stuff and all of that, and like. Poetry is about rhythm as well, just like every other art form. Even if it is painting, we just have to study rhythm and all of those things and to follow that particular pattern. And that's why the Igbo and Idamba, the proverbs and the Igbo, we say like, we cough in different tone, but or we cough differently, but when we cough, it makes the same sound, or it comes out the same way. Everybody knows you're coughing, even if you're saying it in Hebrew, oh, you just coughed. People know you coughed. It's a different word, but it's just the same kind of thing.
Our ancestors spoke poetry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think all of you, well, first, let me say thank you. It was an incredible experience. But I think all three of you in your work kind of have alluded to nature strongly, have strong references to the natural world. And I wanted to ask, does your relationships with language affect your sort of perspective and interpretation of the natural world? And simultaneously, does your relationship with nature impact how you see the role of language?
Absolutely. Sure, everyone will have something to say. I have one little story from a friend that's actually in the book. So in her language, for example, and her father, her mother's German, her father's Krobo, which is a culture in Ghana. Is it also more than Ghana, Krobo?
What?
Sometimes cultures are between nations because the nations came after the cultures, so I always wanted to ask. But in Krobo, the word for woman is mountain. It's the same word.
Wow.
And I, if you think about that, if you grow up thinking, oh, I am a woman, like maybe less than a man, or different than a man, or from his rib, or something like that, versus I am a mountain. And there's a specific mountain that she showed me, that she pointed out, which is where her heritage is from. And my friend Michaela has a similar story of mountains, and she's Diné, or Navajo. So I think that we've always been naming the earth because we come from the earth, right? It's not like the park invented the earth. Like, we are of the earth. I suspect that the more we let in more languages and more ancient languages, the more we will remember that, versus this idea of we're here to control the earth, to exploit the earth, to then leave on a spaceship somewhere we don't know. It's a different way. This is a way of sustainability. I think that language has a part to play in all of that.
I wanted to jump in because Amy and I were...
Just to add something, my impression, I've never heard you read so much.
Yeah.
And I'm so pleased with it because it brings me back to my childhood in many ways. I remember when I was a kid, my older brother, was learning Esperanto. You know what that is? It's a language, a new language that was being taught, thinking that the world is going to speak Esperanto. All the whole time.
Yeah.
And of course it didn't happen.
Right.
All of a sudden, as I grew up, I understood that English was the scientific language, and that kind of angered me a little bit. I remember Greek was the most important language when I grew up. Right?
Yeah.
You had to learn all that. And so, what you just did now, putting the languages together, you've created a very wonderful symbiosis and also a very comfortable place to be.
Well, that's the thing. The earth has already done this. I am like the fingernail, right? This is already our planet. This is how things actually are. It just is not being promoted, and we're not thinking about it and advancing it and thinking that it's the future. We're so concerned about a computer trying to figure out how to create language for us that we've forgotten what we really are already. What were you going to, thank you, Mom. What were you going to say, Karen?
It's also a way that I think when we think about nature, the usual framing is along the lines of preservation and conservation, and those are appropriate, right? But it still is within the context of nature's out there, separate from us. And I think poetries like Amy's and thinking about it, the relationship becomes more of a collaboration. It becomes a listening because nature has its own inherent language. I think a lot of our eco-poetics reflects that. Like, what does actually this landscape is telling me that I get to have a conversation with? We were just talking about this. Yeah. And it's a good supplement to the dominant framing of conserving and preservation to instrumentalize nature all the time,
Notwithstanding that humans, we are also part of nature, and we are not so much different. And from Lao Tzu's Dao De Jing, he says naming is the origin of all particular things, and regardless of religion or your spirituality or whichever way you think the world came to be, in all iterations, the world was already there before we came. So these things already exist. And by existence, we create the world we want using language. Or we name this, oh, this should be a woman, this should be a man, this should be mango. In my language, the same word for the eye is the same thing we appropriate with the sun. So which literally translates to the eyes that never dies when we're talking about the sun. So it's just like this big eye looking at you but never goes to sleep. Or if it ever goes, the moon comes, or another iteration is always there, the light beaming and all of those things. So that's the relationship as poets that we have with the world, because we are not separate from this particular world. Eventually when we die, 6 feet, sometimes not even up to 6 feet, we become one with the world and all of those things. So that whole cycle and
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.